Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 219. I'm delighted to welcome onto the podcast today, fitness and conditioning coach at Gillingham, James Russell. How are we?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Nice to see you, Ben.
Yeah, you too, mate. You too. Thank you very much for freeing up a bit of time and coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
If you can start us off, mate, as we always do. Yeah, I know you might have listened to a few of the podcasts recently, so you know the structure. Your background, what's led up to the role at Gillingham?
What's led up? How long you got? I got 14. This is my 14th season, so yeah, reasonable. I like to think a reasonable amount of experience. We can talk about what you think experience is as I sort of go through it. But started off at Liverpool John Moores on the science and football program. That was my first taste of sports and exercise science at sort of the education level, under the eyes of Barry Drust. And that moved quite swiftly into an MPhil with Graham Close, looking at vitamin D supplementation. But that sort of coincided with a work placement at Rochdale Football Club. So I was living in Liverpool at the time, so get myself over to north side of Manchester. Absolutely fantastic. And I love football. I loved it before I went to uni, loved it during. So when the opportunity came up and they put the work placements out, there were boys and girls going to sort of Liverpool, Everton, Tranmere, and there was a slot for Rochdale, and I thought, well, let's have a look at that. Let's get into that, because people that I'd spoken to that had gone there previously said you jump straight in at the deep end as an intern, they'll throw you right in, and you'll get all of the experiences. So I went, that's perfect for me. So we turned up there. There was two of us, and it was the first week or two was an absolute battering. Like these two young students that had come in, were working with the youth team predominantly. And it really was jump straight into the deep end. So I think it's the second day that we travelled over there. The youth team manager at the time had said, look, these are yours, take them for an hour in the gym and crack on. You were like, well, I've never been in that setting before, never really worked with a group of athletes before. Like how and what is that supposed to look like? But it sort of evolved. The very first sessions, we had a really basic gym at Spotland with a space under the stand to do, I can't remember now, so plyometrics, but making it up as you go along, Ben, making it up as you go along. And it sort of evolved the role. The trust improved, increased. And I think I had a level of self-confidence from having played the game at a semi-pro level. So that sort of helped me out in terms of communicating and being vocal with a group of under 18s. And it touched on everything. You got everything from S&C to sports science to filming. I used to go across to the games on a Saturday at Ashton and film the games and clip those. So it was a holistic, all-inclusive internship package, which has set me on my way really for the last 14 years. Obviously, I needed to come home and earn some money. So I'd left university, I'd completed my master's, I'd moved back home, which is Medway, southeast North Kent way. An opportunity came up at Notts County. So I saw an advert there to work with the first team. Again, another internship role. So I went for it and got it. And that was working closely with Johnny Wilson, who again is one of the real people in my career I have a lot to thank for. I spent 10 months with him, met a lot of people, met a lot of players, met a lot of managers, and now you're in the first team environment where it's completely different, a completely different kettle of fish. Again, I'm unpaid, but I felt that the knowledge that you were gaining, the experiences that you were gaining was every bit as valuable as any money that they could offer you. It was about trying to be in there every day, down at the training ground, probably sort of green behind the ears to start with. Again, just feeling my way, especially on the grass, being confident about doing warm-ups to start with. But there was a lot of really good internal CPD under Johnny. As a department, it sort of mixed from sports science and medicine across the board, and I would say that was as good, if better, than any sort of sports science degree that you could go on. And I really enjoyed my time at John Moores, but it wasn't until you get in there you feel, wow, this is now you have to apply what you've learned. And how did that came about? I think at the time there was the EPP was sort of making a noise, and there were lots of jobs going on in academies. So moving on from there, I'd been offered a job at Charlton. I'd gone down for the interview to work with to be the head of sports science and medicine for the academy. And I'd gone in for the summer. I did some prep work, teeing things up whilst the boys were all away on holiday. And I never got any paperwork as such. So I wasn't tied down to anything at that point. And like in football, it's probably the first moment of many where the phone just rang. And it was Martin Allen from my time at Notts County. He goes, nickname Mad Dog, and you can ask me questions on that later for a reason. He goes, hello, James, what are you doing? I said, I'm just watching the Euros. I think it was the summer of the Euros or World Cup was on. And he goes, I'm in Gillingham. Where are you? I said, I'm 5 minutes away. Why? He said, I want you to join me. Come down and join me. So I went to meet him at one of the hotels around the corner that he was staying. He goes, I want you. This is what we're doing. You're an intern that worked with me last year. Here's your first paid role. I said, well, I've got something going at Charlton. He went, let me see the paperwork, send that to me. And within half an hour, it was all sorted. So that was me into Gillingham with my first spell here. And when I say a whirlwind of a season, we were top all year. And it was one of the hardest years trying to maintain everything that we were trying to do. And we were all about doing the basics well. So everything sports science, nothing fancy, limited budget, do the basics well. And there's a lot of that stays with me. A lot of that in my work that will never leave me. So from nutrition to recovery, to prep work, to being good in the gym, travel, everything we had covered. We had a fantastic time with fantastic staff in a club that's local to me. I used to come and watch this club when I was younger, so it meant a little bit more, perhaps. So certainly a career highlight. And then, unfortunately, as things do, probably in football and experience, I got myself injured in the training session. So it was under a different manager at this point, and I ruptured my ACL. So there I am, sort of ruptured my ACL 2 or 3 weeks down the line, hobbling about, needed surgery. A real experience. I didn't know how to cope with it. The football club certainly didn't know how to cope with it, and they made a tough decision to move me on, which is a story I don't really want to go into too much. But yeah, harsh, really, really hard. That was football biting. We'd just done really well, 2.5 years into the job, and that was me moved on. As cut and dry as that, simple as that. But I didn't linger. I didn't feel I needed to sit around too long. The pay up money, if you like, I went private to get my ACL repaired as soon as possible. That was in the November. By the December, I'd had the surgery, and the phone went. So 2 weeks out of surgery, the phone went. Again, Dagenham and Redbridge. Hi, James. Look, we're looking for somebody to come in. Can you come and watch our game Saturday and then come in for a meeting with us on Monday? I thought, wow, like, how's your luck? And I don't know how that come about. Still to this day, don't know how numbers get exchanged in the ether of sort of football. But there I was in Dagenham, like, again, a little bit of travelling, but not too much. Just a real down-to-earth club with some real core values where I thought I could take that mantra of doing the basics well and really improve what was already set up. And we did well for a short period of time. Worked with some fantastic managers, some really experienced people. And I loved every minute of it there. And then, oddly enough, the phone went again, but it was the manager at the time had pulled me into a meeting and said he's taking a phone call. I was like, right, okay, well, where's this going? And he goes, you're leaving. I was like, oh, I'm being moved on again. Like, what's going on? What do you mean you're off? I said, I really don't know what you mean. He goes, I've had another manager on the phone. He goes, I want to move you. He wants to take you to Barnet. I was like, right, fine, okay. And he wants to take you as assistant manager. I was like, wow, like, where, how does that work? What does that look like? Yes, get me there. Everything, as you can imagine, just spinning my head. So meeting up again with Martin Allen. And when I say assistant manager, it's not, and I've always said, it's not what people think. It was somebody to go in and assist the manager. So all the sort of tactics, all the team prep, I was going to be stood back, listening, watching, learning. It was about me organising the team in terms of travel, training, set play. Set play is probably the only bit of sort of tactical element that I would be able to have a little input in. So you watch videos and you plan and prep a team off the back of that. whilst trying to head up the sports science department that had a couple of really good interns at the time working underneath me. So a really strange experience. It lasted for 6 months, and the phone went again, and it was Martin again. He goes, "We're leaving." We were in the playoffs at the time with Barnet. I said, "Where are we going?" He goes, "Eastleigh." So I have to get Google Maps out, because at the time we were doing really, really well with Barnet. We're thinking, we're going, this could be the Championship calling, it could be anything. It wasn't. It was Eastleigh. People that know football say, if you know the levels, then there's another opportunity there. And it's probably the first time in my career that I found it really difficult as a pair going down there with a goalie coach as well. It was a really difficult time to put anything in place to, as they'd had a few managers and there's quite a little bit of money flowing about down there. Really difficult. Results didn't go our way early on. And that was that really. The manager got moved on, and it's probably my difficult, when you say a highlight, the most difficult time in football, that was it. It was a 6 to 8 week period, I believe, where it was clear that the football club didn't want me. And you really have to sort of dig in, I would say. And it's happened to loads of people, but it was new to me at the time. People suddenly didn't like you. No one was listening to you. That the fitness and the sports science wasn't being bought into. You're not an assistant manager. You haven't done your badges. What you're doing here, and it was a real eye opener for me. A real learning curve in the dark side of football. And I won't go into the details of how I ended up moving on from there, but it wasn't short after Martin had left that I was out the door as well. Mm-hmm. So a really difficult experience being away from the family and getting moved on in the manner that I did. And I thought, that's me for football. Like, I'm done. So I left the game for a period, 10 months. So did a little bit of traveling off my own back, saw the world a little bit, and fell into a lecturing job in London, which meant commuting up and preparing slides and lectures and students. And again, a real valuable experience, more so for the teaching element and trying to get across points and organising lectures and delivering. Something that at the time I maybe didn't value as much, but now, at the stage I'm in now in my career, sort of being able to communicate and get my ideas across and help coach and being around the gym environment and explain what I really, really want. So that was a moment in my career out of football. I think 8 months at the time, lecturing in London, that was difficult. But for different reasons. And then the phone went again, and it was Gillingham. It was some old friends that the position was reopened, if you like, and I was back so quick. And it was some great people here, some people that really love the club and had the best interests at heart. And I got back into the rhythm, just being the sports scientist, which I absolutely loved, just getting hold of it again. Didn't have to worry about any of the coaching, didn't have to worry about anything else going on in my life and my career. And you feel like I got written down here, not a complacency, but I had my daughter came along, and I'm local, and I know there's some things around that lots of people have spoken upon, starting families in the football, and she was my world. And not knock-on effect, because my drive was very much there to deliver the basics and more now. So I was at the stage where I had the basics ready to go, but we wanted to kick on the department. Mm. So in terms of personnel, equipment, technologies, etc. So that was my remit coming back. And I think my development maybe stuttered becoming a dad. I wasn't going on so many courses. I wasn't networking. Be open and honest enough to say you sort of stagnate a little bit for a 2-3 year period. And that is what really happened to me. And the managers changed again. And I know the elephant in the room as I'm speaking, and a lot of people know that at the time, Gillingham aren't doing so well at the moment. And that's absolutely fine. I wanted to I don't want to address that. I don't want to go into too much detail on that, but I wanted to be brave enough to come onto such a podcast and speak open and honestly to a sports science community where maybe those experiences haven't been shared. Yeah. So when the chips are down, who's going to stand up and be counted? And in a relegation season, that's really, really hard. And in the midst of that, I decided upon myself that I wasn't going to let, whilst COVID was going on, I wasn't going to let any of that negativity sort of take my career in a different direction than I wanted it to. So I got hold of my A license, started that, and what an experience that was day one at St. George's Park, from somebody that had done bits of coaching and labelled as an assistant manager, but the chasm from where I was in terms of coaching to some of the people on the course was miles off. And I thought, this is a 12-month course. I could be here for 2-3 years trying to do this. And I was, in the end, I was there. And I'm brave enough to say that it took me longer than the rest of my cohort to complete that A license. And I think at the time the purpose of doing it was to improve my knowledge around the game, improve my skill set, especially on the grass, and being able to transition from knowledge and being able to apply that tactically. So tactical periodization was a big strength of mine within taking the course. I think that was something that I really latched onto and was able to bring back and grow and develop at the football club, especially now with the management where the demands for that side of the game are much higher. I feel like I'm pleased I've done the A license for that reason, because I feel at the moment I'm able to meet those criteria. And I'm still learning. There's still loads. You talk to anybody that knows me at the moment, I'm not a football coach. I'm a sports scientist who's got a good understanding of the game and can put sessions and drills on to take the pressure off what is a small staff. So with the current manager, assistant manager, who are fantastic people, that they need the help. And hopefully there were moments in the session and in the week where the planning, it's not all on them to get out on the grass, and I can alleviate some of those pressures to help them focus. So that's really that's 14 years in a nutshell. I don't know how long that was that 14 minutes, but it felt like there were loads of bits in there that you're welcome to pick apart, and we'll go from there. Yeah,
mate, what a breakdown. That was awesome. I love not just the fact of talking about it on a time scale, but also you've covered so many challenges and given a real insight into the real world of football there as well, and how it works. And I've got a couple of areas I want to go to, but the first area I want to take you right back to where you mentioned about coming out the internship and Martin Allen making that call to say, I'm going to give you your first paid role. What was it, do you think? You can say from your perspective, but also maybe if you've had any feedback from him as well. What was it about you, do you think?
Martin was into people. He was into who you are, your values. Probably, he'd be fair to say, didn't know too much about what I was delivering. But I think his personality and mine really matched. So I think if we asked him honestly, that would be it. I'd say being able to communicate and just being the right person. We talk about. There's
been a lot of people in that similar situation with internships, because you see it all the time, and a lot of people have been very honest on the podcast that have said that they basically wasted opportunities. And that is highlighting the fact that there can be some real positives that come out of these opportunities, can't there?
Yeah, all I'd say with internship and the opportunities, especially at Rochdale to start with, I was putting myself into rooms where I perhaps shouldn't have been, if that makes sense. Not doing anything I shouldn't have done, but we're in team meetings and I'll just slide into the back of the room, or we're at half time, like sort of when I was with the 18s, you're shadowing with the first team. So John Lucas was my mentor from a first team perspective. So I would ask him questions, listen. I don't think when I have interns down here, they look and listen enough. Watch what's going on around you, like pay attention to the details, and you don't have to act on them straight away. It's all right to take it in, and in the right moments ask questions. So that's where now with my interns, I like to say, take a look, take a step back. No one's asking you to jump straight in. Look, listen, and then ask the questions appropriately at the right moments beyond that. And I think that's what my internship was about. Even into Notts County, it was about look, listen, and try and understand, and carry yourself where you're first in and last out. I think that would have been another strong point, because I loved it so much. And that's not me bigging myself. I felt that I gave the internship absolutely everything, and the opportunity came from there. Like I said, I got offered the job at Charlton off the back of an internship, but quickly emerged into my first team role. So yeah, I hope that answers that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I'm going to take you back to sort of present day. And it's something that I really respect, to the fact that you've came on at this time to talk about what you're doing in the club in a hard, tricky position at the moment. But I think it's really important at the same time. I always say at the end of the season, I think we look at leagues and we focus so much on what clubs have done at the top end. Practitioners have done an amazing job. They've won the league. And we forget that there's practitioners down the bottom that have done equally, if not better jobs. But there's more to what we do than just the sports science support, isn't there? There's results and a lot of other things that come as a part of that as well.
Yeah, and I have to sort of jump onto that and say, I agree with you. I think when I listen to podcasts, there's lots of positivity in moments of success, and that's fantastic. And it's always great to listen to people that are in those moments of their career. And I always think in football, if you're going to have a longevity in the game, you're going to have these moments. You don't want too many of them because you won't be in it long. And it's how you react and get out of those.
Yeah.
So people are, if you're going to be in football, you're going to get moved on. You're going to be, well, yeah, hopefully you're not suffering relegations, but it was one of the best experiences I've come across in football, because there are many things out of your control, and it humbles you. And it gives you an inner drive. Certainly me being a hometown club of mine, that I wasn't going to sit back and accept it for what I could control. So we reviewed a lot in the summer. We spoke about the Japanese model of Kaizen and looking at every process, the level of detail. Where can we improve? Where can we really take the club forward? That where budget is an issue, you always have to be honest. Like, we can't go out and buy bits of tech or bring people in. So we latched onto the universities, as we always do, and we brought in some good people this year. And we've got Vald came in and really helped us out. That's taken us up a level. The food's improved, little things like that around the club that were perhaps in a relegation season really difficult to maintain around COVID and what was going on with the football club at the time. We've just recently managed to pump ourselves up to Vector. So we're always looking for improvements here. And I'm hoping that one of those where we stick to our guns, believe in our principles, and it will come good. And I'm a strong believer of that. And I think that's probably the message of jumping onto this podcast in a moment where it's tough, that actually these are the moments that test your principles, and it will come good. And you have to believe that. In what is already a tough season with a squad of 16 to 18 senior pros, and we're on track. We're on track to play the most amount of games in this club's recent history. So it's tough. We're in the League Cup, we're in the FA Cup, which is great. We're preparing for a game tomorrow night on a limited squad size, but with some great people doing your absolute best to mitigate any excuses. And I think that's me being honest, and hopefully there's some value in those comments.
100%. I think the other thing, sort of piggybacking on what Ian Cole mentioned a couple of episodes ago, was when results aren't going the way of that you want them to go, as practitioners, and probably practitioners that are maybe a little bit less experienced and that haven't been in these situations before, it's very easy to start second guessing your philosophies and your habits. And you mentioned before about you're doing the basics really well. It's very easy to turn and start second guessing everything you're doing, isn't it? So what's your mindset in this period in terms of, I put these things in place for a reason, and these are the things we're going to stick to? How do you stop yourself from second guessing?
You know what? And honest, probably 2 weeks ago was my first second guess. So I reviewed myself, nobody else, nothing else, no other situation. Looked at myself and went, we're doing the right things, James, and we are. Like, it's me talking in my head, and you think, yeah, like we are. We research, we network, we speak to other people. There's a plethora of experience within the football club, and we believe we are, and we've taken it so far. And people will say there's a glass ceiling, but let's take it further. Let's see what else we can add to that principle. And you've got your values, and don't, if you fall on your sword, you fall on your sword. That's the way that football works and life works. So we're trying not to come away from anything that we put in place, and we're really we've had a lot of, I say we've had some success from an injury perspective. Our availability, soft tissue wise, is good. Touching wood. The fitness of the lads is good. Like, we're happy with that. So, are we doing the right things? Are we doing the wrong things? And it's important, I think, to have the experience of the staff to help you realise that and come together and keep delivering, and it will come good. We have January around the corner, and it's no secret the football club needs help, and it's in a transition period off the field. So we just have to be ready for that as well, and deliver when the positivity does join the football club again. We are able to kick on and get this club at the edge of London back to the Championship where it's been before and where it should be.
With that moment, James, you mentioned there about having those conversations. So I know you sort of said about having them with yourself in your head, which we all do all the time, don't we? But who's your network? Like, who are the sounding boards in that moment? Is it people at the club? And I don't necessarily mean you pulling out names and saying it's this person, this person, this person, but are there specific people that you turn to in that moment and say exactly what you just said? Are we doing the right things? I've got all these principles in place, but are these right? Or is this a time to change?
Yeah. And there are people within the football club that are excellent at having those conversations open and honestly. I think some people struggle around a table to take criticism, and at times it's difficult. You have to learn to take the criticism, but it's how you respond to that and action that and review. So the people within the football club that are certainly very good at that. And there are people in my network, again, I won't name names, that I'm able to phone up. I'm able to sort of offload on a little bit, and I get a little bit back. That people that have had those experiences previously, really helps out, really helps the mindset.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I think it's really important, isn't it, to have those people. And like I say, it doesn't need to be people specifically, but I think it's people that challenge you in a good way. I'm trying to think of the phrase. I think it was James Malone used a great phrase. It'll probably come to me in a little bit, but on his podcast around sort of the role of a mentor, and it doesn't have to be anyone official, but that's essentially what we're looking for in those moments, isn't it?
Yeah. Somebody that has been there, been to the next level. We talk about high performance at the moment. Okay, and we create a high performance environment.
Yeah.
And we're using every resource available to us to try and do that. And I believe we are. On the track to try and do that. But when it doesn't, when you say how the word, when you're aiming for the high performance, but you're not seeing the results. So what you're going for performance and results, and always trying to stick performance. The performance will take care of the result. Stick with the performance, stick what you're doing, and the results will come, and they will, they will. You have to believe that. Yeah,
100%. James, what do you think has been the role or opportunity or even period in a certain role that's progressed you the most as a practitioner?
The assistant manager roles, the pair of them, were eye-opening. It gave me a look into a side of football that I knew was there, but you never really appreciated it as much. The darker side, you were taking phone calls off of agents, you were dealing with chairmen, you were accountable to a lot more than you were. So becoming organised around having those roles associated to me. I think coming back to Gillingham with those experiences under my belt was sort of the second phase of my career, if you like. Yeah. So I'd been the intern, I'd been an assistant manager, I'd made my mistakes, and now I was ready to go back into. I had some time out of football, I was ready to go back in and try and put into practice doing the basics well again, but with a little bit more added onto it. And I spoke about becoming a dad that slowed me down a little bit, but I'm out the other side of that now. And probably now, going back to your original question, where the moment is in my career, probably now where the value of the moment is going to stand me in good stead, trying to get through the period that we're in.
And just you referenced it there about leaving the club, and obviously the circumstances will move on from, but leaving the club and then going back. What are some of the key differences if we line those two practitioners up, those two versions of James? Like, what are the big differences?
fantastic question. I think maybe the ability to ask more questions. So I'd say always asking questions at the moment, always asking the right questions. Whereas before, maybe I was given the answers and almost sort of, this is what we want you to deliver. This is how we want you to deliver it. When I'm sort of in my early 20s at the time, and yeah, I digested that and delivered. Whereas now you have to think. You're accountable. The thought process is there are people working underneath you. There are the level has gone up around the club and the staff that you're working with, and they're maybe the two differences between the two James Russells in two different moments. Yeah, it's a really strange question thinking about that. I'm still in my early 30s, by the way. I'm not as old as I've sounded for the last half an hour. But you might believe it with the beard and lack of hair, but I'm still young in my head.
It's really interesting though, because you're not going to have many people that have been in the same role at the same club, are you? But two different occasions. There's probably going to be a few, but I doubt there's going to be too many. So it's just really interesting with those experiences in between. I think that's where it becomes really important that you're the sponge, isn't it? And you mentioned before listening, standing back, learning, and then you've also just referenced questioning things. I think they're all such valuable traits to have, aren't they?
Yeah, and don't be scared to open up the floor and ask that your perceived strengths in tapering, in periodization. Ask people around you what their thoughts are. What you're working with some really experienced people. Like, don't be scared to ask them if you think things need modifying, or you need to ask another question. And if you keep asking the right questions, you'll get the right answers at some point.
Yeah, 100%. With the players now, James, as well, because obviously it's a tricky period for them. When teams are flying, the results are coming in, I imagine some of the challenges that coaches are facing with players in the gym or getting them to do extra work or whatever becomes a little bit easier because results are going the way they want. At this moment in time, with your support for players, how have you found that?
At the moment, there's no problem. Again, you asked the question about the two different James Russells. I'd say the two different dressing rooms and type of dressing rooms that you're dealing with. We have a young and hungry dressing that want to do extra, want to do more, want to learn, which is great. And it almost makes your job easier. The first James Russell in the first period at this club was tough. We're working with some men, they won't mind me saying, towards the end of their careers where maybe the value of sports science wasn't in place throughout the majority of their careers. And they asked more questions as well. And they were difficult. That was a difficult period to work with and learn your communication skills around people that don't do gym or haven't done. So at the moment, that there isn't, I think you always have to explain, and I know people on the podcast, if you explain what you're after, what you need from the group, then, and what the players are still sponges and hungry. They want the answers before they can buy in, talk about buying in, before they buy into it. At the moment, everything's being bought into.
Yeah. Well, that comes off the back of a lot of work, doesn't it? And trust and relationships, because that doesn't just happen. That there's obviously a lot of work that's gone into that to create that, especially at this moment in time.
I think that's people. That's people in the right places, and communicating and being on a level. I was having a conversation with a senior coach just the other day, and we were talking about what makes the good coach. You've got two buckets. You've got content, and then you've got relationships. So you can have all the content in the world, but if you haven't got the relationship, you ain't going to deliver either. You can have all the relationship in the world, but if you can't back it up with content, you might as well not bother. So you have to meet in the middle, but as high up as you can, and keep pushing the content.
Yeah. I think that's so important. It's been a lot of the conversations that we've had on here, isn't it? Like, I can think of practitioners that have got that content and knowledge is unbelievable, but they just really struggle in terms of relationship building, and vice versa. A lot of coaches great in the dressing room, building relationships, but then the sort of backing it up is not quite there. And it is really important, isn't it? But I suppose it's noticing that and knowing your strengths as a practitioner, and then stepping back and deciding how you're going to develop whichever one needs developing, isn't it?
Yeah, and along with that, what I would say is you put trust in other members of staff. around you. We have a good department. We have people. I name check Thomas Murphy and Gary Hemmings, two people that help drive the department as a free, if you like, with Tom Moore on the S&C side, Gaz on the physio side, with sort of me in the middle of the continuum, and driving the free experiences and the three different lenses together as three different practitioners, rather than sort of unicorn management within a department.
Yeah, definitely, mate. You've got to expand. You mentioned before about the Mad Dog story, and you said you were going to expand on it. So before we go into the quick fire,
did I promise I'd expand on that?
Put the pressure on you now, haven't I?
He was a brilliant man, a brilliant coach. We met up not too long ago. I'm trying to think of some anecdotes. Actually, it's probably convenient. We're playing Wolves tomorrow in the Carabao, and he's famous for wearing a set of red trousers, tight red trousers, I might add. He brought them out on special days, FA Cup days, and all sorts. But he wore them. We were playing Wolves away at Molineux, first game back in League One as a football club. He wore these red trousers, and the kickoff was delayed because it was a sellout. So I'm mid warm up, and he comes marching over and he goes, "Stop! We're kickoff delayed 15 minutes. Everybody take a seat. Relax." Shouting, "Relax." And that summed him up as a character. He took control of the situation mid warm up as a manager in front of 2,000 travelling fans at Molineux. It was one of the unbelievable experiences of Mad Dog. Yeah,
brilliant.
So there's people like that. They never leave you. Some of the values that they instill, some of the alternative working theories that I still use, that maybe others value as outdated. So he's one of the, might answer a quick fire question for you there, but one of the real people that can mold a career. Yeah,
just on that though as well, like for someone like that, and we've had a few chats with people that have worked with other managers that are super experienced. Like he's come across a hell of a lot of coaches in his time. So just going back to the fact that he picked you out and wanted to and valued the work that you're doing, it just shows, doesn't it, that they're going to notice. Like they come across a hell of a lot of coaches. If there's a work rate there and a trust that can be built and that relationship that can be built, they're the guys that are going to really know. So they're the ones to impress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I said to any intern, just work hard and get all the experience, be the sponge, and your personality will shine through off the back of that.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Just touched on some great stuff in there, James. You know that we finished the podcast. You just referenced it a little bit, so I think there's one answer there. But we always start the quick fires with your biggest or some of your biggest influences on your career so far.
I'll start with Johnny Wilson. My time at Notts County. I know we spoke about it earlier, but somebody that was so driven, as an example of somebody from the sports science medical background. Wanted every single member of his department, whether you're intern or whether you're full-time member of staff, to come back with a CPD session, and he would drive and demand questions of all of his staff at every moment. So he's somebody that maybe I like to model myself on now that I've got people that look up to me for the same from that side of things. Yeah, Johnny Wilson, 100%.
Brilliant. Anyone else? Obviously, you mentioned the gaffer in there, but anyone else?
Yeah, the current staff. The current staff at the moment, they've worked at a high level. They know what they're talking about. That their questions, their methodology, the way that they work, and the previous management to that, albeit different style, give you a different way of working. So again, in those moments, in those particular right moments, we're both set to my last management, were mold me to where I am a little bit more now, and as I am as a practitioner, for sure.
Yeah, bro. What would you say your biggest strength is as a coach?
Organise and communicate. I know it's. I think it was one of going to go back to the thing with Martin. He made every junior member of staff carry a notepad. So you go into any meeting, you're walking up, even if you're in the corridor without a notepad, he'd ask why. Because at any moment you'll see something that you want to ask a question about, or somebody would say, give you something that you want them to deliver, or a player might come to you with, how do I get better? And in those moments, you can't remember everything and all the details that have been spoken about. So I was able to communicate through that, through making notes and lists. And you'll never see me without a notepad more often than not. And being able to pull in the people that make a department and make a football club, from the chef to the coach driver, and being able to organise those people. I think that's the strength of mine. Certainly around a gym setting, being able to organise sessions, being on the grass, and make sure we're delivering the content that we decided we need to deliver.
Awesome. And if I take you back, if you were able to, we've talked about 2 James already, we're going to do it again, but we're going to take you back even further. So if I take you back pre-internships, if you had to give that James some career advice, what would it be?
Don't stagnate. Don't find, there'll be periods in your career where you slow down your drive, where you slow down your learning. For me, I slowed down my networking. This is my 14th season, and probably the first time I've even thought about coming onto a podcast or being visible again. Don't let the moment that you're in, whether it be difficult or successful, don't let those moments slow you down. I feel like I've lost a chunk of my career through becoming a dad, which happens naturally, but and COVID chucked into there where I stagnated. And I've been honest enough to say that. And I think if you haven't stagnated, you're probably not telling the truth. So in those moments, I'll be telling the pre-internship James Russell just to keep driving.
Brilliant. And then finally, mate, what's your approach to CPD? Continue learning. How do you go about that now?
Yeah, it's tough because CPD can cost. So we try and do a lot of internal CPD. I've spent X amount on myself in the last 2 or 3 years when we talk about the A license. There's no one here at the moment that's going to help me with that. So that continues. I'm looking at some more of my strength and conditioning workshops and badges to get those underneath my belt, so I can be basis, A license, and UKSCA. So that's my next drive. That's my next target. And keep driving the internal CPD that we do around the club and the departments. It's difficult because you want to go on every course, you want to go to every conference, and it costs time, it costs money, but you can find ways around that and self-fund yourself. If you've got the club to pay for you that you're working at, great at the moment, but when you haven't, you really have to try and find moments to fill in those gaps.
Mate, brilliant. I think that podcast, that episode would relate to a hell of a lot of people, and I appreciate your honesty, but also, like you mentioned, coming on at this time, I think is so important. It's something where you can talk in a position that a lot of people probably won't be doing this right now. So I really appreciate you reaching out and coming on and speaking the way you have.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I hope people find it valuable. And if you do want to reach out, then I'm on LinkedIn. If there are moments where you're the same and it affects you mentally and physically, if there are any practitioner out there in a similar, if you can relate to what we've just spoken about, then reach out. But then just believe that there will be moments in your career as your career goes along where the positive times will come back. And make the most of them as well. So it's not going to be a 30-year career of promotions, is it? It's going to be bumps in the road.
Yeah.
I hope there's some value in that to people when they're listening.
100%, mate, there will be. And I really appreciate you coming on, James, and best of luck as well for the rest of the season.
Yes. Cheers, Ben. Cheers, mate.